Okay, so we will start. Give me 1 second. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at covering learning outcome 3, and this is primarily related to understanding the impact of current trends, which is basically new trends in the hospitality industry, and how does it impact the tourism sector in general. So basically, this unit in terms of contemporary issues, as we have covered, learning outcome 1, it's about understanding contemporary issues. Then we understood the impact of these issues, but on 3 different factors. So they were consumers, business, and destination management. And then when we looked at learning outcome 1, it was more focused on the 3 types of issues: social issues, environmental issues, and technological issues. Now, in general, what we want to do in learning outcome 3 is primarily to understand what are the latest trends that are affecting tourism and hospitality industry. And there are only 2 assessment criteria in this. One talks about explaining current trends, influencing change, and how is change being brought across into this sector. And again, we are looking at 3 aspects of it: consumer, business, and destination issues. And then second one talks about analysis. That means we need to look at using appropriate technique and resources. But essentially here we would need to take up a particular example. And this particular example is going to be related to the fact that we might need to pick up an organization like a destination management organization, or for example, a company, or a hotel chain, and that is where we will look at the analysis in terms of current trends. So in order to cover this particular learning outcome, we've got a couple of things that we need to look at in terms of understanding how we are going to go about essentially using some of the let's say, I'll put it this way, let me rephrase. So in order to understand this learning outcome, we are first going to look at discussing what are the various trends which are seen, or which are seen to be changing the tourism and hospitality industry. That's the first thing that we would want to look at. And then we will get into some of the assessment criteria and then relate them to consumer issues, business issues, and obviously destination management issues. Now, in order to discuss this particular learning outcome, I've got a presentation which I'll share with you. This is, of course, the updated version of the presentation. And what I'm going to do is, obviously, after the session is over, the copy of the recording and also the updated presentation with a few articles in particular. There are 2 models that we will look at in terms of frameworks in today's discussion. These I've covered towards the end of the slides. So these 2 models that we're going to be looking at is, one is technology acceptance model, and the technology acceptance model primarily looks at how is technology going to be accepted within a particular organization? What are the steps which organizations take to introduce new technology in order to increase productivity, efficiency within the organization? And the second framework that we are going to be looking at is the Servicol model, which is primarily a model which is synonymous with understanding the key dimensions of quality and serviceability when we are offering when the products and the services that the company or the organization sells, or is basically able to offer, is going to be based on the measurability of how good the service quality is and customer satisfaction is. So these are 2 models that we're going to be looking at in this particular learning outcome. But in general, they are going to help us understand what are the consumer issues, what are the service and quality related issues when consumers do not get the service. And we'll take this up with an example of Marriott Hotels, which is what I've included in the discussion for assessment criteria 3.2. So let's get into understanding first what are the current trends in the tourism and hospitality industry that are basically let's say, that are basically affecting this industry. So when we talk about basic trends, if you look at just generally understanding what are the trends that you are seeing yourself which are affecting you in general in your day-to-day life, can you think of any such trends or technologies which are affecting you?
Mobile check-in.
That is definitely one. So when you look at mobile check-ins, could be used for making payments, which includes the technology NFC, near field communications. You could also be looking at check-ins. That means sometimes when you have to, you do a Facebook check-in when you go to a destination, or when you're traveling and you go and check in a particular place to say that I'm now arrived, or when you share location-based services. So this is one good example of how we are seeing technology integrating into our day-to-day lives when we use social media, or when we are traveling, abroad on a vacation, or in general, using mobile phones to be able to make payments. Any other trends that you see that are affecting, or basically we are using them and they are changing the way we actually look at either having a vacation or a holiday?
AI, artificial intelligence.
That is correct. So one of the other areas which is quite big right now is artificial intelligence, wherein on websites, we generally get to see that there is an increased usage of what is called chatbots. And these increased uses of chatbot essentially ensures that, you are able to get to, or when you make a phone call to certain departments now or certain places, most of the rerouting of the call in terms of filtering is actually done through automation, artificial intelligence or automation on the phone, saying that if you need finance, press 1, if you need, administration, press 2, marketing 3, and things like that. There are lots of other areas which are, obviously coming through, and they are actually changing the way we travel, the way we look at, let's say, using services. And in some cases, how do we look at, some of these services making our experience a bit better, or, obviously improving the experience that we are having. So if I look at some of the other aspects of it, there is a term which is coming across, which is called be leisure, or be leisure. So leisure is a word, but adding the word be before it. Now, be leisure this is something which you get to see sometimes when you are asked to fill up a feedback survey questionnaire. What you're generally going to see is that the service questionnaire is going to ask you, are you traveling for business? Are you traveling for leisure? Are you traveling for, say, for example, a holiday? Are you traveling? What is the reason that you're traveling for? And one of the things which comes across is that, are you traveling for business or leisure? So if you're traveling for both, because sometimes when you go out on a meeting, or you're going out to attend a seminar, or say, for example, an exhibition, you're actually going to be attending that during the course of the day. But in the evening, you might also venture out and go and see the city, or experience the culture, and that is where your aspect of culture and so the aspect of leisure and business mix together. So this term called be leisure is also something which is coming up as one of the changes, which is now hotels adapting to. What is the after effect of this, if I put it this way? The after effect of this is that hotels today, which were essentially looking at going after and having B2C teams, or direct to consumer teams, or B2B business teams, are now looking at obviously doing this filtering at the end when they call from the call center, or when they solicit business. And what they're doing is, the difference between the pricing of the rooms and the facilities that you normally get is slowly and gradually either disappearing in budget hotels, or it is becoming much more pricier and much more clearer when you are actually going into 5-star or premium hotels. So you would normally get to see, if you're traveling for business and leisure, they might give you or throw in the standard services. If you book a superior room or a club room, then they might throw in facilities like the spa services, the access to the gym, and those bits can be given across to travelers who are essentially, traveling not just for business, but also for leisure purposes. So the lines between business and leisure are actually blurring, and people are traveling both for work and leisure. And that is where this particular term, which offers a mix of business and leisure activities to attract travelers, is essentially coming up quite seriously in our times. And that is what is called be leisure travel. Now, automation in general is becoming quite important. You're looking at wellness travel, which is happening. There's a lot of technology integration, as we mentioned and discussed earlier, like near field communication. You're able to check in now using barcodes or RFID cards, or which can be downloaded as an app on your phone for the hotel or any location that you're going to. And then the introduction of personalization within technology is also making a lot of difference. So if I look at personalization, that means, when you get into your room, the TV normally switches on when you plug your card in and it says, welcome to so-and-so, welcome to Switzerland or something like that. And that is the aspect of personalization which is happening. You are served a wine bottle or a bouquet of flowers, or maybe some welcome drinks or chocolates when you enter your room. And this personalization is happening from the aspect of technology as well. So using display, using integration of technology, which can actually help you, memorize. So sometimes when you're close to your room, or when you're at the access and entrances of a particular location within the hotel, they recognize your presence because of video and say, for example, the presence of an app or an RFID reader, which you have in your hand, and that allows you to get access to some of these areas. And this would be personalized. In business services, you would normally see this personalization even happening on the cards that you get. Or for example, when you look at, say, for example, renting a room, what will happen is some of the things that you are going to use in the rooms will have a bit of personalization on it. So one such equipment is the television, because they will ask you your interest, and movies and other entertainment related stuff would be personalized to your liking. And if you are checking in with kids, the access to Disney channels, for example, or Pixar movies would be given, and that would be leading to personalization. So there are lots of different examples of how current trends in tourism are forcing hotel chains, resorts to essentially change and adapt technology, because customers are asking for things like, personalization, automation, looking at traveling for business and leisure both. And in some cases, 2 points that we look at, how they are changing in particular for resorts and destination management places. Like if I go look at Maldives, Bali, if I look at Paris, Disneyland, which I mentioned, you look at some of the destinations in Greece and, Spain, which are predominantly known as tourist destinations like Ibiza, you look at Majorca, you look at Santorini. These are destinations which are tourist, or Sardinia in Italy. These are destinations which are termed as what are called tourist destinations, wherein people go for either wellness travel, and in some cases here, the facilities, things which are integrated into wellness travel is things like yoga classes, spa facilities, beauty and hair salon treatments. Those are basically looking at making additions into some of these destinations, which are predominantly known only for tourism, and they derive most of their income and revenue from tourism. So when I talk about Australia, for example, the Western Coast, when you look at in particular, you look at the Western Coast, which is Perth and Adelaide. You look at, for example, Sydney, the Coral Barrier Reef. You look at some of the destinations like Tasmania, the Outback in Australia. These are all tourist destinations wherein people are either going for sustainable tourism, or they're essentially going for wellness travel. That means they want to take a relaxing holiday in the environment or with the nature, and that is where some of these facilities are built in. Now, these are trends which they were there 20 years back, 30 years back, but technology is speeding the access to these trends, because this allows flights to be, connections because of flights are available, automation and technology, which allows bookings, self-check-in kiosks, which we normally see at the, hotels and airports. You see that these are things which are making it easier for now customers and consumers to travel in different locations for the purposes of tourism. And then, we do see advertisements of Zettle, which is a card reader. So if you're out and about with friends and you want to settle payments, that same card reader can be actually used, and different cards can be tapped to basically pay the entire bill. Instant messaging, things like, coming in of Uber and taxis, and, things like, let's put it this way, websites which allow you to compare and, then look at the costs, features, benefits of hotels before you actually book the hotel, or say, for example, a stay in a particular location for when you go on a vacation. So websites like booking.com, or websites which basically look at travel, bookings in terms of flights. So when you look at these, there are lots of these sites like igo.com. These are sites which allow you to compare budgets, fares, destinations, flights, connections, and then allow you to make a comparison. And then you can go in and do your bookings, which could also mean that you are ending up saving money and time in terms of stopovers and other bits. And these are all things which are changing essentially the the aspect of tourism and hospitality industry. Is that okay? Is that broadly understood in terms of the overarching aspect of the let's say the current trends which we see, which are reshaping from a technological perspective in the tourism and hospitality sector? Now, when we look at, so there's a video that I've also put in, which is a generic video that I picked up from YouTube that you can also watch. And that is going to highlight some of the technological changes which are happening within hotels, things like RFID cards, check-ins that you are able to do, mobile payments that you are able to do, or when you're at the, one of the things which obviously is not directly related to hotel industry right now, but what we do see is a trend. So in some places, what you'll see is Amazon is currently experimenting with stores, Amazon Go, as they are called. They've been introduced in, London, in New York, in some of the places in these two countries, wherein you don't need to pay. There is no till. All you do is you tap your phone with your card barcode when you go into the application, into the store, using the application, and whatever stuff you pick out or you buy, you check out, and you just walk out of the store, and automatically you'll receive say, for example, a message to say you bought these things and your card is being charged for that. Now, these kind of technologies will slowly and gradually find their way into other places like hotels, cinema halls, sport and leisure complexes, because what will generally happen, or superstores, what will generally happen is location-based services would then be used to basically, and location-based services, near-field communication, obviously automatic payment systems, and then mobile technology. Combination of all these will be used to essentially track the movements of an individual within the store. When you pick up the stuff, the reduction in the inventory from that shelf marks the till that you're taking this product, and at some stage when you decide that you're walking out of the store with the number of packages, so looking at vision technology, number of packets or baggages that you're taking in terms of shopping would automatically get deducted from your card. So there's a very nice video of Amazon Go. If this is something that you haven't seen so far, in terms of how this technology is going to be used, there is a short video that you can look at, and what you'll be able to do is basically get a good idea and a glimpse of how these technologies are going to essentially enter
spending too much time trying to track down.
So let me just show you one.
Lark Care's Pro Plan has got you covered. It's the all-in-one solution that saves.
So this is an example of a store, and if you watch this short video, it will show you how it is changing the way we shop. And this is under experimentation right now by Amazon in a few countries, in a few cities. And you don't till, and everything it automatically calculates in terms of how you're buying in the store. That's how simple it is. So these technologies use location-based services, they use near-field communication, they use visual technology in terms of cameras and surveillance, and at the same time using mobile technology to be able to essentially ensure that people are able to shop. They just walk in by scanning, and then at some stage automatically, depending on the products that they have lifted from the inventory, it basically calculates everything, and you get a text message or or an email to say these are the items that you purchased, and this is helping in automation. So if I look at that video and if I ask you a question, that what is it that it is helping enable by using that technology in that store? So there are a few things that you will notice. One, there are no tills. Second, there are no people or people in customer services which are servicing customers. Number three, you don't see any shelves being restocked because everything is restockable from the back. of the store, which is not visible as an area. And in some cases, this is also being done by automatic Amazon robots, which basically are, pulling things up as and when the shelves are being emptied by inventory. And then last but not the least, as you can see in this, there is no transaction taking place in terms of receiving money, sending money, or giving money, or exchange of tills or receipts. And that is looking at saving paper, looking at saving, obviously automation is looking at here, increasing productivity and efficiency, but also reverse flip side of it is that it is doing away with jobs if automation takes that over. But there are lots of advantages with this technology. And as you can see, this is what most superstores or retail industry or places within hotels, restaurants will start embracing in a few years' time. Because when you enter a coffee shop and you pick up things from, say, for example, a shelf, or say, for example, from a self-serve kind of a 24/7 coffee shop, there will be no need for it to be, a bill needs to be signed or check needs to be signed and things like that. It will automatically all be tracked using, technology. And this will be a combination of a couple of technologies: near field communication, mobile technology, vision based, surveillance, and also at the end of the day, technology which is going to use location-based services, which is the most important in terms of tracking the movement of the customer within the store. Automatic inventory management and refilling of the shelves, which is also being done through the robots at the back end. Is that okay? Any questions on the general overview of the learning outcome so far?
No.
Okay, now let's look at the two assessment criteria. So the first assessment criteria that we look at in particular on this particular learning assessment criteria is talks about explain current references or current trends which are influencing change. So the main part that we are looking at is the current trends which are actually influencing change within the tourism and hospitality sector. Now here, when we talk about change in general, what we are looking at is going to discuss out of the top trends, what are the trends which are essentially forcing change to happen within the tourism and hospitality sector. So one of the things that comes to our mind is that, because if we go a few decades back, because of the expensiveness, or let's say, let's put it this way, let me rephrase that. So if I go back to 2000s, or if I go back to the 1990s, what you'll generally see, a lot less people used to travel for tourism and, let's say, vacations to places which were outside their catchment area or outside the country. Now, this could be because of various factors. One, restriction on obviously visa services. It could be related to flights being very expensive. In some cases, intercontinental or transatlantic flights were not possible 30 years back, or they were possible, but they were very expensive. And it was outside the permit of a normal family, like a middle income group or a family essentially to afford a holiday abroad. So in most cases, people used to travel locally. But now that airline, let's say a lot of these budget airlines have come. If I look at just an example of Europe itself, you look at Ryanair, EasyJet, lots of these airlines, which are basically budget airlines. Sometimes if you're able to plan and book early, you can actually fly from, say, Manchester to Geneva or Manchester to Zurich in about 49 euros. Some places like from here to Dublin, if I plan about 2 months in advance, could only be a 14 euro flight from Manchester, or 14 pounds flight with airport taxes and everything, maybe 21 pounds. And that has made, travel easier. Because of the travel being easier, a lot more tourists are actually traveling. So I don't know if you have done, just an example. So if I do a quick Google search in terms of how many people globally traveled and took a holiday in 2022. So if I just look at that number in terms of how many people actually traveled and took a holiday in 2022, it will give us a bit of a rough estimate, because obviously I've not looked at any particular destination, but if I look at a couple of destinations, like Spain is the most frequented, country which basically gets the maximum number of tourists and it has overtaken the US in, I think, the last 2 years. So last year's number on Spain itself was 71.8 million people visited, Spain. And I look at US, it is 70 million. So if I look at a global number in terms of how many people actually took a holiday, roughly 45% of the population across the globe, was able to travel. And the US economy alone, just on tourism and hospitality, is about 2 trillion. So look at the size of the economy and the revenue it brings. 78% of Europeans actually travel at least once to a holiday or take a holiday once a year. So when you look at European population, 340 million, and if I say 78% of that actually travel, it's a huge number. So when I look at all these factors, what it tells us is that when we look at the pressure this travel, international travel or tourism activities putting on nature, Mother Nature, one of the things which is coming across as a current trend, which all governments, all locations, all destinations are essentially looking out for, is sustainability. And obviously, there's a lot of discussion about the impact airline travel in particular is having on climate change. So when we look at these two factors, just these two factors, these are factors which are currently in discussion, in debate across the globe, and sustainability in terms of how to ensure. So when I look at the definition of sustainability, what I mean by that is that we are looking at the ability to be able to maintain a process over time which allows the business and the environment to coexist together. And in this case, when businesses are using the environmental, let's say, resources to benefit and profit from their operations, then what they have a moral responsibility of is to prevent any depletion of these natural resources or physical resources so that they are available to our younger generations or our generations in the future. So when we talk about plastic in oceans, when we talk about littering and waste which gets created when sometimes tourists go to certain destinations which are deemed as destinations, or destination itself is deemed as a tourist destination, then in those cases, there is a specific focus on ensuring that the depletion of natural resources does not happen, environmental littering does not happen, and there is a priority amongst governments and local population to ensure that they're able to keep these environments pristine. So one, you can attract tourism for years to come, and the second is you are also able to help preserve the environment in terms of ensuring that you are able to derive revenue. The business is able to derive revenue and profits from it. Now, we have talked about technology, and it is a no-brainer at this moment, because when we do talk about technology, what we are generally seeing is that technology is becoming a big enabler. So there are bits and pieces that, for example, if we look at construction itself, if a hotel was to be constructed in a remote area, earlier it used to be all done through manual labor. But currently what we do see is that when we talk about construction happening in remote places, a lot of technological things like equipment in particular, if I don't talk about AI or automation, what we're essentially looking at just is the equipment, the ability of the equipment to be able to reach those locations helps in speedier construction of hotel, resorts, and leisure facilities in any area, because there is equipment which can be transported through road, by air, by rail, and that allows in the speedier development of hotels or related infrastructure in a particular location. And if we talk in general about technology, we can include automation, the use of AI right now in most let's say functions and facilities which any particular tourism organization would offer, and these would be enabled because of the aspect of technology integration which has started to happen in this particular sector. Then we also talk about cultural and experiential tourism. Now there is a push now by let's put it this way, when we look at certain countries or certain places in the world which typically provide experiential tourism. So when you look at the Himalayas, for example, or you look at Mount Kilimanjaro in Kenya or Tanzania, you look at, for example, the French Alps through Switzerland, or the French Alps through the access through that for skiing purposes or for holidaying purposes through, let's say the French Alps itself, the region, or when we look at going through, Switzerland, what we do see is that some of these destinations tend to be providing experiential tourism. That means there are activities which are going to be beyond the normal. So when you go to the outback or when you go to tall bridges and structures, people normally go and use bungee, jump off those structures, and that would be bungee jumping, for example. Sometimes you look at paragliding, you look at sea sports, wherein you would be looking at participating in sea sport or leisure activities like scuba diving, or for example, kayaking, or using a yacht to hop into different islands, and just getting the ability to be able to travel and do some of these activities on your own tends to be providing the ability for you to go and experience new cultures, new areas, and obviously it provides you with the aspect of seeing the mother nature, obviously experiencing some parts of the nature firsthand. And in these cases, what you are looking at is experiential tourism. And these experiential tourisms, what I've done essentially is created a bit of a handout which has been compiled from various sources, and that gives you an idea in terms of what all activities can be covered under what is called experiential tourism. Now, when I look at this aspect of experiential tourism, it basically means that you go and you immerse yourself in the local cultures. So, for example, when people travel to, say, for example, meet some of the tribes in Africa, or in some cases, when you go and mix up with the communities in remote locations like the Amazon, then in those cases, what you're looking at doing is you're putting the experience first and foremost as a focus of the activity that you're trying to do, which is when you go on vacation, you're essentially looking at, immersing yourself in with, let's say, engaging experiences wherein it allows you to connect with people, country, maybe a specific population or a community within that area. And they would then have a lasting impact with you in terms of the experiences or memories that you carry. Now, we also looked at one of the main aspects of current trends which are influencing the industry is that if you see during the COVID pandemic, what happened was a lot of safety protocols were put in place, and this particular pandemic mostly brought tourism to a bit of a standstill in most locations. And when we look at the precautions which are required, because in this pandemic was spreading quite quickly and countries needed to combat this pandemic, travel essentially was banned. So when we look at during this time frame, some of the operators acted responsibly, and they allowed cancellations to happen. There were things which were not essentially available in some of the policies, but the government legislation and regulation actually forced, and also they worked with the sector like APTA and some of the other organizations in this sector to basically create policy and legislations which allowed customers to either extend the booking or in some cases allowed for cancellations to happen. And that was maybe something which was not prevalent in some of these let's say policies and procedures earlier, but because of the change and the pandemic which everyone experienced, there was a need which was necessitated, and this allowed these changes to essentially happen within the let's say the within the organizations or within the hotels. Now, some of the other things that you are going to look at in particular is that there is a shift in travel preferences which is happening. Now, this shift in travel preferences is happening because of the fact that when we look at how people want to travel, or what preferences in terms of what are their needs and requirements, specifically when we talk about, the travelers in general, when they are essentially looking at, traveling for, say, business or for leisure or for vacation with family members, what we do generally get to see is that the shift is happening because of the fact that there are either environmental conditions which are changing, or in some cases, the offering itself from the sector is changing. So when we look at environmental conditions, so for example, COVID pandemic, there was a shift in preferences. People prefer to go locally or travel locally without having to go abroad, taking a close flight or, being in a close location for the purposes of taking a flight. What people started to do was they did a lot of what is called a vacation, but they took something which is a local vacation. That means in-country tourism actually boomed during that time frame. Preference changed from being indoor to outdoor vacation spots wherein spread of virus and other things could not happen. And last but not the least, this shift in travel preferences sometimes can have a positive and a negative impact. So when we look at a lot of cases of cruise ships having pandemics and people, cruise ships, like there were a lot of places wherein in the Caribbean or in Japan, obviously a lot of cruise ships wherein the virus was contracted. The government basically said isolation should happen within the cruise ship, and they were parked, and passengers were not allowed to deboard the cruise ships. And in those cases, all the medical facilities were provided, within the ship, so that that population should not mingle with the population in the local area, and that would have meant widespread spreading of the virus. So in some cases, it impacted luxury travel, severely, and there was a shift that people went for more local travel or local vacations in order to be in the outdoors rather than in indoor places. Now, this shift in travel can also happen because of global changes or globalization. For example, currently, if you look at in places wherein people normally go for beach holidays, but because of climate change, if there are extreme temperatures in the region of, closely hovering to 40 degrees centigrade, people are having a change of mind and they're not going to places like Egypt or Sharm el-Sheikh, or even some of the places in Spain or Greece, where normally British travelers, just as an example, would travel during summer vacation because the temperatures are unbearable. They are in the low 40s. And in those cases, it is very difficult to look at. So what has happened is the change in climate, or the climatic change which is happening, is forcing people to look at other spots where they can actually go and do or enjoy vacation. And they are then tending to promote what are called city breaks. And these could be shift in travel preferences happening because of, so for example, one such place that I've been to a number of times, like Barcelona. People don't prefer to go to Barcelona now because it is very crowded. It is a very modern city, and it is very expensive. It is known for pickpockets and things like that. People can lose a lot of belongings, and obviously because of the cosmopolitan and the metropolitan nature of the city now, it has become quite expensive to go in and do a city break or a holiday in that location. And it's because of crowding as well, because it's become a very frequented city in Spain, and a lot of people who have been to Barcelona earlier now are looking to change preferences in terms of travel, simply because they feel that this climate, that location in terms of overcrowding and expensiveness in terms of basic amenities is making it reach far beyond their reach. So when we look at these things in general, you would generally see that they are now influencing what is called changes in tourism and hospitality sector. Last but not the least, personalization and big data. Now, there's data being stored everywhere now. So when you look at data, your mobile phone, when you go to a till, when you do shopping, when you buy something, you have loyalty cards and club points and things like that. So a lot of data is being currently stored, which can be used to look at understanding your preferences, your needs, and then can be tailored by various hotel chains to essentially send offers to you. So data is becoming important from a technological perspective because it allows the hotel chain or the organization to understand what were your best preferences for a stay, and what could be the things that they could provide in the future, taking into account your previous experiences, so that you have an overall good experience. You come to that property again, and then you're able to give the best reviews possible. So data can be used to tailor experiences. Data can be used to send out offers, promotions, and data can also be used to recommend when you are out and about browsing on the website, to say, this is the room that I'm booking. And if you are already a member and if you stayed at that property, by default, you would generally see the room preferences and prices and offers would start to come across. And this is primarily because there's a lot of data mining, data storage has been done, and data mining allows the companies then to process the data and provide offers and promotions to you accordingly. Is that okay? Any questions on the first assessment criteria?
No.
Let's look at the second one, where we need to talk about, the current trends that could be used, which are basically coming across in the tourism industry. But what we need to do is do a discussion with regards to these changing, or basically these trends which are requiring a change within the organization to adapt technology in general. So when we look at discussing this criteria, what we need to do is look at taking up an organization. And when it talks about appropriate techniques, what we are looking at is the Servicol model and the TAM model, which is technology acceptance model, to be discussed. That will help us do analysis. And then in terms of resources and some of the bits which are resources led and are forcing or asking the organization to make the change, would be used as arguments to discuss and cover this particular assessment criteria. So for this, what I've done is I've taken Marriott hotels as an example, and with that hotel chain in mind, what we're going to discuss is the impact of technology. But in general, there are lots of different types of technology. But what we're going to do is, because we are looking at doing analysis, we have to pick more than one. So I picked up artificial intelligence, and I've looked at digitization, which is increasingly becoming important for all organizations within DiTHM sector, tourism and hospitality sector, to embrace. Otherwise, they have the risk of being left out if they do not embrace artificial intelligence. In general, embrace technology, but within technology, we're going to be discussing AI and digitization. Digitization, if I put it this way, what is digitization in terms of simple words? Digitization basically means that the companies or organizations have been asked to adapt system and processes which can be operated with the use of machinery, equipment, computers, or the internet. So when we use the word digitization is closely linked to internet side of things, or IoT, internet side of things, or Internet of Things, which basically means that today, if an organization uses internet and it has connected computers and systems and equipment with it, that allows digitization to happen. That means transfer of data, sharing of output. That is basically enabled through the process of digitization. Digitization also means that, if I look at maybe 20 years back, most of the records which were maintained by the hotel or any such organization in the tourism and hospitality sector were paper-based. Digitization means all these records have now become electronic. They are available in the digital format. They can be stored, retrieved. Queries can be performed on them. And this allows the information to be organized. And when we say organized, it can be used to, make decisions. These are the information can be organized into reports, and reports then can be used to make decisions. And the decision making using past data makes it easier for organizations within this sector to let's say send out offers or send out promotional offers to consumers, or in any other area as well. So digitization is process of converting data into digital format. This would then be used with a system, or computer-based system and internet, and that allows the organization to use, repurpose, send the data in a digital format, and that makes it easier for them to reach out to consumers, or in some cases it helps in decision making. Now, when we look at artificial intelligence in general, what we are looking at is talking about things which are currently being replaced or taken over by technology, wherein use of robotics, automation, and use of AI or artificial intelligence is increasing within certain parts or departments within the sector, and that allows consumers and the information to be retrieved quickly. For example, you're able to send personalized data to a consumer. You're able to create a delight, for example, because as against the response time, people would have normally expected maybe say a few hours or few days. Now you can turn around that task within a few minutes, and that would basically create or better the customer experience and expectation from a customer standpoint of view when they place a query with the hotel or any such organization. So when we talk about, say, for example, certain things like chatbots in places on websites. So for example, if you had a quick query and you were able to ask that question on the website to say, what is the last date to which I can reserve or book this room. Generally what tends to happen is, if you've seen when you do shopping on Amazon, and sometimes if you're ordering any product, what normally it says is get next day delivery if you order within 20 minutes. Now that is something which is using some sort of an algorithm in the background based on artificial intelligence, where it calculates how many customers are actually browsing that particular product, and then how many such products are available locally in the inventory in the Amazon warehouse. And then it puts a timer on it to say, okay, this product normally in an hour, 800 customers order, but there are, maybe 8,000 customers looking at it, and it does a probability check using some sort of an algorithm, and then gives you a particular time to say, if you order this in about 20 minutes or 27 minutes, sometimes it is within an hour, 50 minutes, then you are guaranteed to get next day delivery. So these bits are typically happening with the usage of artificial intelligence. Now, if I have to relate this to a hotel, if you look at the hotel website, most of the hotel websites today are e-commerce enabled. That means you are able to book hotel rooms directly from the website. And what tends to happen is that if there are other people who are also looking at rooms while they are trying to book say a particular room in a particular property, what it will also show you in the parallel is that there is so many customers looking at that particular property and looking at that particular room, and there are so many such available. And on our site, if you plan or if you do not book in so many minutes or so many let's say in a couple of minutes, then this property or this particular room might not be available. So if I just show you a brief view of such automation, which is currently now applicable on various booking websites. As you can see, I've just gone on to bookings.com. I've just done a quick random search of looking at a hotel in Bronus on Windermere. And if you see here, it says only 2 rooms left at this site, breakfast included. So it is already giving you some sort of message. And if I go into this and check availability on one of the rooms, when it was only 1 room available, it will also show sorry, it will also show how many customers are essentially browsing this particular property as you're also browsing, this particular hotel. And this will give you a sense that this information is being provided to you in real time from the website. And that allows, to a certain extent, allows you to make a decision quicker. And maybe it pushes, let's put it this way, it pushes you to make a quicker decision, but also gives you a perspective that, okay, if you're after this property and you're really wanting to go into this location, it will straight away tell you that, okay, so many customers are looking for it and so many rooms are available. But if you do not book in a certain amount of time, what will then happen is that this would be, this would be something which will not be available, and it would be something that would be then you'll miss that out, or you'll miss out the offer on. So if you go through, what you're able to see is that artificial intelligence being applied. So here it is asking us a question: are you traveling for work? Do yes and no. And obviously, if it says traveling for work, then they might ask you another question somewhere down in the questionnaire to say, is this for business and leisure? And then some of the offers and promotions that they will send once you've booked this particular hotel would tend to be related to the category of how you're trying to book the holiday. So some of these things you are looking at currently, in terms of information on a real-time basis, And this is the use of algorithms using artificial intelligence, which is going to allow, you to, let's say, make informed choices when it comes to, using technology in terms of, booking hotels. So if I look at some of the, other sides of things, you're going to generally see is that these are things which are now built up on the website. And these things basically would allow you to say, for example, make informed choices as far as, let's say, usage of technology is concerned. Now, if I look at on the Marriott site, assuming you were traveling to Switzerland on the Tuesday and for a day or so, what it will allow you to do is obviously view the rates, view the hotels, and in some cases when you go in and you're trying to check in and look at, say for example, booking a particular location, what then it will do at some stages basically start giving you an option that there are so many rooms left, so many customers are viewing this particular offer, and that would be the use of technology. Now, how does it integrate with the aspect of current trend, and what does it mean for you and me as customer? So when we talk about current trends and when we look at how they are affecting tourism activity in general, we are looking at two frameworks. So these two frameworks typically tend to be the technology acceptance model, whether the organization is open to accepting technology and are they embracing the use of technology to make customer experiences better. So this particular model was essentially, proposed, by, let's say, in the early 80s. And this particular model essentially allowed, let's say, the organizations to look at whether they are going to be able to use once, for example, if they deploy the technology, whether their customers are going to be able to use the technology and whether they'll be able to utilize it to get a positive or a better customer experience. And this technology acceptance model, which was initially introduced by David and his team in the late 1980s, after conducting a thorough research, allowed the organizations to understand the perceived usefulness. So there are basically a couple of factors that we need to understand in terms of the key points on this model. So this model, when it was introduced by Fred Davies, as I mentioned in 1980s, was used to understand and explain to customers the use of new technologies within a location. So whether, say, for example, introducing automatic coffee machine in the room, will it be useful for the customer or not? How much will it cost the hotel? So if I introduce things like a automated, capsule-based coffee machine instead of a hot kettle with some coffee and tea bags being disposed of in individual rooms, will the automation make the automatic coffee dispenser, say from Nespresso or any other brand, would it make a difference to customer? And the usefulness, will it have any usefulness for the customer? So what will be the likelihood of this technology being accepted by the customer and will it enhance or allow the hotel to get a bit of premium on the rooms that they are pricing out? In those cases, this particular model, as an example, will be used by the hotel chains like Marriott and some of the others to evaluate whether this will be useful in the long run to increase revenue, to increase customer experience, or to better the customer experience, and does it meet the customer's expectation? So things like perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, looking at attitude towards the use, or for example, the actual use of this technology in the room. Introduction of, say, Marriott decides that, okay, most of their properties have had televisions which are 32-inch or 26-inch televisions, but now it's time to have televisions which could be connected. That means they have internet connectivity, and that allows them to serve data, content, or entertainment using the servers within the hotel property. Now, if you look at televisions which were introduced earlier, replaced the large cathode ray based televisions, then LCD televisions came, then came plasma, and now you have OLED televisions which basically have the connectivity to the internet. They allow you to interact and download information from the internet. They have widgets on it. You can do a bit of programming on it in order to get your favorite applications as widgets. Now, all these things are essentially possible. Now, does Marriott, hotel implement this technology or not? So they look at going back into the data, and they see that they have, say, 26,000 properties across the world. And in these properties, they see that an average customer stays at the hotel or stays a night, 1 or 2 nights at the hotel. Then they look at the usage of television or time, how much time is being spent on watching the television within the room. They find that on average, a customer looks at less than 19 or 20 minutes, on television within their rooms. Now, if they need to better the experience and integrate technology, what are the advantages which the hotel is going to get? How and what are the advantages which the customer is going to get? So if they look at that, using a bigger television or making it the center of the room, the hotel can actually send across promotional offers on what is being served today in the coffee shop or in the main restaurant. Or, for example, electronic invoicing can be done where the customer is able to see up-to-date, billing which is happening, and that can be seen from the television or pulled from the television in terms of looking at visually. They might also look at, providing promotional offers on in-store movies which can be watched by the customer if they have checked in with children or young people who would be interested in, obviously watching movies if they stay indoor. Assuming if it's raining outside. So these are various decision-making criteria or information that they will look into before they take a decision. Okay, let's upgrade, say, 200 rooms in a property with a new, most up-to-date, OLED television. Now, how much will it cost? Assuming they upgrade to a 42-inch or a 50-inch television, and each of that costs, say, £500. And if it's being replaced in 200 rooms, you can see that is going to be an expense of over 10 million. Now, will it be worth it? How would that expense be worth it? Whether it will be used by the customer with the data that they have, and over what period of time will they be able to break even or at least recoup this money in terms of profits or additional revenue by offering this facility to customers who stay at the Marriott hotels. Now, these are things that are going to be looked at by undertaking an analysis through what is called the technology acceptance model. So here it is an information system theoretical framework which allows the organization to come to a conclusion whether the user will use the technology, accept the technology, and make a meaningful use of it while they are at the property, and what they would need to consider to ensure that when this is acceptable, what are the steps they would need to take to ensure that this is then deployed and it allows the benefits to be passed on to the customer and allows them to create a competitive edge as against their competitors in the market. And this would be a model that they could use to primarily test that particular assumption. Now, the second model that we are going to look at is the model which is the Servicol model. And the Servicol model or the framework was initially proposed by Pearson and Berry and the team. And what they did was, when we looked at the Servicol model, what their main aim was to understand what could be the theoretical framework that they can come up with, which allows the organizations to understand customer satisfaction and what level of quality they need to be able to serve or have within the organization system and processes that would create a delight for customers and thereby creating, what is called customer satisfaction. So this particular framework has now been widely recognized for measuring service quality in particular. So this is employed as a model in all the service related industries, call center, financial services, you look at tourism and hospitality management, even in various other sectors wherein you have a service part of the organization which is meeting and dealing with customers directly or providing services to customers directly. This particular model is put into practice by and used by the organization to primarily understand how service quality can be bettered and how that when the service quality is good, how can that help in essentially meeting the requirements of the customer? So this model, if somebody is going to ask you what does it do, it basically is a model that is used for measuring service quality and customer satisfaction, as simple as that. Now, we can apply this model in any industry. Now, when we need to apply this particular model, we need to understand what are the 5 key areas under which this model can actually help us to understand what is quality and how does it relate to customer satisfaction or customer experience. So the first factor is reliability, which basically talks about how reliable the service is. Now, a lot of airlines actually claim, if you take an example here, a lot of airlines actually claim that we have, 99.8%. We keep up with the times. That means we fly in on time, we land on time, and that allows the airlines to have some sort of say a quality aspect which says that our flights leave and land on time. And that makes a lot of difference for customers who are traveling for business. And in particular, when they are taking flights, that would mean that they are assured that their times in terms of, flight times, check-in times, landing times, and takeoff times are going to be as what the company is actually advertising. So this parameter would essentially give the organization a reliability parameter to say, this airline is quite reliable. I've never had any canceled flights. I've never had any delays, and they've always been on time. And that is where you start to trust this particular airline in terms of reliability. The second aspect would be responsiveness. So if I talk about reliability in terms of Marriott hotels, what you're generally going to see is that in the Marriott hotels, when you book a room, you are guaranteed that you will receive that room when you check in. When you look at checking in, whatever features were promised or whatever things that you booked while or what you have seen while booking the room on the website are bits that you will get. And the reliability of that would be the room would be clean. It would be suitable for your purpose in terms of stay. And, it is, you'll not have a situation where you book the room, but what they do is when you reach that destination, you say, okay, sorry, sir, the room that you booked was actually sold out. And what we are now going to do is upgrade you to a room, but you need to pay a bit extra. And you'll be very frustrated and, frowning because of the fact that, you booked it in advance, you paid for it, but this is the situation. So reliability wise, you'll have a question mark that, okay, this has happened with me once in, maybe 4 times or 5 times, then, you still question that reliability in your mind. You look at responsiveness. Responsiveness is primarily related to the provider's willingness and ability to be able to help customers promptly. Now, if something is to break down in your room, for example, your kettle breaks down and you call the customer service or the front desk, and what they do is they immediately send you a new kettle. This is responsiveness, that they've been able to solve that problem in a timely and responsible manner. And that basically creates an impression that if anything is to go wrong, they will basically take care of it. Then you have assurance. Assurance typically deals with measures which are related to competence, courtesy, and credibility of a service provider. So here, what we are looking at is that when you are assured that you are going to get the best of the facilities, you are getting an assurance from the hotel chain or the management, or, when you are dealing with the travel agent, that, there is no compromise or there is no compromise going to be done as far as providing these facilities are concerned when you book the hotel. So here, you're not dealing just with competent staff, people who are courteous, but also ensuring that there's credibility in terms of the service that you would receive. And that would instill confidence in your ability to be able to rebook or come back to that property. Then we look at tangibles. Tangibility is basically related to physical aspects of service delivery. That means some of the equipment like lifts are working, escalators are working. You have basic equipment in the place wherein you are going to use some of the resources or facilities, and they would be generally working clean and professionally maintained and serviced. And that would be essentially looking at tangibility. Now, if you go to, say, for example, getting your car serviced at a dealership, say, for example, a Mercedes, when you enter the Mercedes showroom, how does the Servicol model actually come into play? So when you go and park your car in the parking and you come into the reception, somebody greets you. They understand that you have a booking. In some cases, you have automated kiosks. You are able to check in straight away and then sit and take a table. Now, when you sit down and take a table within the reception area, one of the colleagues would come in and they will say, can I get you a tea or a coffee? In the meanwhile, you're waiting for one of my colleagues to come in and serve you. Then this is courtesy, this is competence, this is credibility, because what you're being assured of is that there's somebody who's going to come and speak to you, somebody who's going to look after you, and then you have the front desk or the reception essentially taking care of you from a point of view of greeting to serving tea or coffee to make you comfortable in that, comfortable for the timing that you're there in the location. Now, when you look at your car being serviced, you know that they have all the proper facilities, they have all the proper equipment, parts, spares, everything to be able to service your car. And when you get the car at the end of the day or at the end of your service, you are going to be overall very satisfied, because you know that it has been serviced in a very competitive, professional environment by people who are competent technicians, and your car was in good hands today. So sometimes Mercedes also sends you a video of your car to say that your car has been now serviced. You look at it, tires are okay, back end is okay, front is okay, down, engine is okay, and all that stuff. And that is an over and above experience that you get, that even if you're not at that location and you left your car and then you're collecting it in the evening, that would still mean that you get a video clipping of that to be able to watch, and that shows that your car has been serviced and it is in good hands. And then obviously in some cases, one of the last dimensions tends to be the dimension of empathy. That means here the provider, the organization, has the ability to be able to understand and execute the needs, execute the processes or policies to be able to service your need and meet your preferences. So they will try and give you personalized attention, and also genuinely make an effort to comprehend and understand your situation and your requirements, so that they are able to provide products or services meeting your preferences and requirements. And this particular model, which is the Servicol model or the service model, which is basically used to understand customer expectations and quality, is an important model today in the industry. And what I've done is I've explained this in a bit more detail by taking an example of Marriott hotels, and for each of the parameters, what I've done is I've given you a bit of an example by taking say reliability about airlines or trains, responsiveness, with the hotel actually looking at replacing, say for example, a broken down kettle. You look at assurance, which could be primarily banking services, tangibles, which means the hotel is clean, restaurant is clean in the hotel, and empathy, if something is to go wrong, then the staff is able to essentially empathize with you and understand that this is something which has gone wrong, and they would take all measures to be able to correct it, or essentially make sure that you still your experience or your needs and preferences are still taken care of. Now, there is a video that I've also uploaded here, which is on YouTube, and that is for technology acceptance model. This is an 11-minute video, which basically explains how the technology acceptance model came about, how it is used today in the service industry, and how does it help organizations understand the use of technology which is going to be put into practice within an organization. What is the probability of that being accepted by the user, and how it can be utilized to primarily create a delight or more satisfaction for the customers in a tourism and hospitality related environment. Is that okay? Any questions on this so far?
No.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's discussion with regards to what we are covering in terms of learning outcome 3, which is predominantly related to understanding the current trends in the development of tourism and hospitality sector. Now, in order to do some further reading, what I've done here is I've provided 3 links to website. One of them talks about the further reading in, which is basically the hospitality system for the future. This gives you a very good idea. If you go into this website and look at this particular article, it will give you some idea in terms of how things are going to come up in this particular sector. The second is 5 trends which are driving hospitality industry. and what it means for property management. This is going to give you a view in terms of understanding when we look at why are properties, so expensive, or in some cases, why hotels are looking at now making multiple usages of properties by looking at opening things like business centers and other facilities, which would be useful to keep the property going or the revenue going for the company, even during lean periods of tourism and hospitality industry. So, for example, there are certain locations which are known as destinations for tourism. If I look at Sardinia, Santorini, now throughout the year, there is tourism between April to October, but there are months in which there is no tourism activity because either it becomes too cold, the weather is not suitable or conducive, and people can't get into the beach. So in those cases, what the industry is looking at doing is driving other trends, things like spa treatments or experiential tourism, and that is something that you'll be able to read from this Forbes article. And then last but not the least, just to generally look at what are the trends which are coming up in hospitality industry. This particular article talks about 13 different trends, or maybe I think 5, or then they've listed a number of other trends which are going to be defining the hospitality and tourism industry going further in the future. So these will be some additional readings that you can do through the website articles, and those links have been provided here. Now, we are going to be meeting up tomorrow, same time at 11, to discuss learning outcome 4 for this particular unit. And if you have any questions, then feel free to ask me, and we can also do a bit of a recap tomorrow morning to discuss if you have read through the new presentations and seen, or if you have any questions related to learning outcome 1, 2, or 3. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I will end the session here, and I'll make sure that the copy of the presentation and the recording is made available in the next couple of minutes so that you are able to go through them. And what we'll do is meet up tomorrow to discuss LO4. Till then, take care. Thank you for attending, and bye for now.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.